Assalamu alaikum guys. Today we are discussing the heart. The heart is a muscular hollow organ that is present in your thorax. The region in which it is present of the thorax is known as precordium. First, if we see the outer covering of heart, during development the heart invaginates into two sacs of membranes, that is the fibrous and the serous. When it invaginates and develops properly, the layer of which adheres with the outermost layer of the heart, the epicardium, is your visceral layer of your pericardium. This is your serous pericardium, and this one is your fibrous pericardium. As you have seen, this is fibrous and this one is serous. When heart invaginates, the two layers of serous pericardium, that is the underneath is the visceral layer and outermost is the parietal layer of serous pericardium. The visceral layer of serous pericardium adheres with the outermost layer of the heart, the epicardium. That's why it is known as visceral layer. The parietal layer adheres with the inner layer of your fibrous pericardium, and this is the outer layer of the fibrous pericardium. So the outermost layer that covers the heart is the fibrous pericardium, the outer and the inner fibrous pericardium. Then the inner fibrous pericardium is adhered with the parietal layer of the serous pericardium like this, and then the most inner layer is the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. Between the parietal and visceral layer of serous pericardium there is a pericardial cavity. In this pericardial cavity there is small amount of serous fluid. In abnormality when there is accumulation of fluid in this pericardial cavity, this is known as pericardial effusion, or a term known as the cardiac tamponade. When there is fluid in this cavity, it will exert pressure on the heart. That's why it is known as cardiac tamponade. Tamponade is something that exerts pressure. When there will be pressure exerted on the heart, the venous return will be hindered and the aortic outflow of the blood will be hindered, so the heart will be in the pressure condition. To relieve this condition, to drain this serous fluid, we insert a drainage needle from the left intercostal space in the xiphoid process. As this is the sternum in front of the heart, this is the left costal margin. We will insert a needle from here in the left costal margin of the next to the xiphoid process, and we will drain the pericardial fluid that is excessive in amount, and the cardiac tamponade condition will be relieved of the heart, the pressure condition. If we see the relations of the fibrous pericardium, above it is continuous with the pretracheal fascia of the neck, and below it is amalgamated with the diaphragm. On the either sides there is phrenic nerve that is coming from the brachial plexus and innervating the diaphragm. Whenever there is the word phrenic, that means the diaphragm. So both right and left phrenic nerves are present on either sides, and lungs and pleura on the either sides of the fibrous pericardium. Anteriorly there is, I have shown in the dotted line, there is sternum. This is the manubrium sterni, this is the body, and this is the xiphoid process of sternum, and there are sternopericardial ligaments anteriorly. These are the relations of the fibrous pericardium and in turn the relations of the heart. So moving forwards, if we see when the heart was developing, the aortic and pulmonary tubes, there are two tubes in the heart, the arterial tube and the venous tube. The arterial tube consists of the pulmonary and aortic area, that is the ascending aorta and the pulmonary trunk, and the venous tube consists of the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and 4 pulmonary veins. So the sinus between the arterial tube and the venous tube is the transverse sinus, and between the during development there is a sinus that develops in the pulmonary veins, that is known as the oblique sinus. If we see the arterial supply of this fibrous and the serous pericardiums, there are the musculophrenic arteries on the sides and the internal thoracic artery that supplies these pericardium layers, and the nerve supply of the fibrous and the parietal layer of The serous pericardium includes the phrenic nerve. As they were passing towards the diaphragm, they supply the fibrous layer and the parietal layer of the serous pericardium. The visceral layer of pericardium and the three layers epicardium, myocardium and endocardium are supplied by the autonomic nervous system. So the outer layers are pain sensitive. The pericarditis that arises from the pericardium is from the phrenic nerve and you feel pain. On the other hand, the visceral layer and the layers of the heart are insensitive to pain as they are supplied by the autonomic nervous system. Now if we see the borders of the heart consist of 4 borders. First we see the chambers. There is the right atrium, right ventricle, the left atrium that is posteriorly, and then is your left ventricle. These are the 4 chambers. Then there is the upper border, this one. The upper border is formed by the right atrium and some part of the left atria that is mostly posterior but some part lies anteriorly. Then is your right border that is formed between the superior and inferior vena cava and some part of the right ventricle. Then is your inferior border that extends or forms mostly by the right ventricle and ends in the apex of the heart. We will discuss the apex later on. And then is the left border that extends or mostly forms the left ventricle and extends till the apex of the heart. So we are saying apex of the, there are 4 borders: the upper border, the right border, the inferior border and the left border. The surfaces are the, as we have discussed the 4 borders, there are 4 surfaces of heart. Number 1 is the anterior surface that is known as the sternocostal surface because the sternum and the ribs lie anteriorly to the heart. So this is the anterior sternocostal surface. Then diaphragm lies inferiorly, so the surface here is the inferior surface. The left border forms a small surface that is known as the left surface, and there is the posterior surface that is also known as the base of the heart. So there are 4 borders: the anterior sternocostal surface, the inferior surface, the left surface and the posterior surface that is the base of the heart that is mostly formed by the left atrium, and there are 4 pulmonary veins that enter into the vicinity of the left atrium. If we discuss the apex of the heart, that word has been discussed so often. The apex of the heart is the most downward left and forward part of the heart that lies in the 5th intercostal space. If we locate the apex of the heart, that is 9 centimeters lateral to the median plane and it is medial to the mid-clavicular line in the 5th intercostal space. That is the apex of the heartbeat is mostly felt here in the apex area. If we see this hypothetical diagram, this is the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium and the left ventricle. The openings and the structures that are important in this we will discuss. First of all, the deoxygenated blood enters in the right atrium through the superior and inferior vena cava. The right atrium consists of the area that is enclosed between the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava is known as the sulcus terminalis. Sulcus terminalis. So, the sulcus terminalis consists of muscular ridges that is known as crista terminalis, and the muscular bodies that are attached are known as musculus pectini. There is a fossa that is the fossa ovalis and the annulus ovalis. There is also a valve of the inferior vena cava here that is inferior to the annulus ovalis. There was foramen ovale in development but it closes, so the remains is the fossa ovalis. If we see the left atrium consists of 4 pulmonary veins that takes on the oxygenated blood to the left atria, and then the left atria with the reference to the right atrium there is fossa ovalis, there is fossa lunata. Otherwise there is no significant structure in it. If we see the right ventricle, the connection between the right atrium and right ventricle is the tricuspid valve because it has 3 cusps, and the communication between the left atria and left ventricle is the bicuspid valve or the mitral valve that has 2 cusps. The left ventricle is thinner than the right ventricle is thinner than the left ventricle because the left ventricle contains the deoxygenated blood and only has to pump into the pulmonary trunk, but the left ventricle is thicker as it has to pump blood in the aorta to the whole part of the body, so it needs more energy. There are only three muscles. If we see this cross section of differences between the right and left ventricle, there are three types of papillary muscles in the right ventricle. This is the septal, the anterior and the posterior papillary muscles. In the left ventricle, there are two types of muscle only, the anterior and the posterior papillary muscles. There is tricuspid valve that has three cusps in the right ventricle, and there is bicuspid valve that has two cusps in the left ventricle. There is crescenteric cavity of the right ventricle, and there is the circular cavity of the left ventricle. There is also the pulmonary orifice because it has to pump deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and there is aortic orifice because it has to pump the oxygenated blood to your aorta. The right ventricle forms 2/3 part of the sternocostal surface, as we have seen in this structure. Most of the sternocostal surface is formed by the right ventricle. So 2/3 part of the sternocostal surface is formed by the right ventricle, and 1/3 part of the sternocostal surface is formed by the left ventricle. On the other hand, the diaphragmatic surface, 1/3 is formed by the right ventricle and 2/3 is formed by the left ventricle. If we see the fibrous skeleton of the heart, the fibrous skeleton of the heart are fibrous bands that connects the valve or the interior of your heart. The tendon or fibrous band that connects the pulmonary and the aortic valve is your tendon of infundibulum, and the fibrous tissue that connects the aortic and the tricuspid valve is the trigonum fibrosum sinstrum, and that connects the aortic and the mitral valve is a triangular area like this. So it is also triangular, so it is trigonum fibrosum dextrum. Now moving forwards, if we see the circulation between this, the deoxygenated blood comes in the right atria to the superior and inferior vena cava. Then it is pumped through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps it into the pulmonary trunk, and the pulmonary trunk gives rise to two pulmonary arteries. These are the only arteries that take the deoxygenated blood in the body and take it to the heart. From the heart, there is oxygenation at the capillary level, and the oxygenated blood is returned to the heart through four pulmonary veins into the left atria. The pulmonary veins are the only veins that contain the oxygenated blood. From the left atria through the bicuspid or the mitral valve, the oxygenated blood is pumped into the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle, the aortic orifice the aortic valve gives the blood to the whole part of your body, the body tissues. There are two types of valve, as we have discussed: the atrioventricular valve, that are the tricuspid between the right atria and right ventricle, and the bicuspid between the left atria and left ventricle. And then there are the semilunar valves, that are the aortic between the aortic orifice of the left ventricle and the aorta, and the pulmonary valve, that is between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk. The atrioventricular valves have three cusps, as I have drawn here. This is the cross section of the bicuspid valve, in which there are two cusps, and these are attached to these ones are the chorda tendineae. These chorda tendineae are attached to the papillary muscles of the interior of the ventricle. So there are cusps of the valves, and then these are attached to the chorda tendineae to the papillary muscles. When blood flows from here to here, for example, this is a bicuspid valve, so left atria will pump oxygenated blood to your left ventricle, and when there is blood transferred from the left atria to left ventricle, these chorda tendineae tighten up and they stretch the cusp, and hence they open and the blood comes here. The backflow or the term known as regurgitation is not taken place because there is the firm attachment of the chorda tendineae and this layer closes. So these valves are present because to avoid or prevent the backflow or regurgitation of the blood. The semilunar valves, these are known as semilunar, aortic and the pulmonary, because they are in shape of a moon, half moon shape, and they don't have any fibrous septa like in this the atrioventricular chorda tendineae. There are no cusps. They are heart shape, moon shape. They have three cusps that are semilunar or moon shape, and they conduct blood from the ventricles to the aorta and the pulmonary trunk from the left atria through the left ventricle, and the left ventricle pumps the blood to the aortic valve into the aorta, and the right ventricle pumps blood from the pulmonary trunk, pulmonary valve and pulmonary aorta. And there are also coronary sinus that divides your atria and ventricle, separates them. There is the interatrial, inter between means two, so interatrial septum that divides into the right and the left parts. The right hence give rise to right coronary artery, and left has the contents of left circumflex artery, that is the branch of the left coronary artery. And then there is the interventricular groove or the sulcus that is divided anteriorly and posteriorly. For example, if this is the anterior surface and this is the right ventricle, left ventricle, this is your anterior interventricular groove, and hence this is the posterior cross section. This is the posterior interventricular groove between the right ventricle and left ventricle, and this is the atria, the coronary sinus or the atrial interatrial. If we see some clinicals or the normal phenomena, the closure of the atrioventricular valve produce the first heart sound, that is the lub, and the closure of the semilunar valves form the second heart sound, that is dub. So the heart sounds are lub, dub, the first and the second. The first is produced by the closure of atrioventricular valves, and second is produced by the closure of the semilunar valves. And if there is mitral or tricuspid stenosis, stenosis means the narrowing of the valves, the tricuspid or you can see the aortic or the pulmonary, there can be stenosis of 4 of them. So if the stenosis of the tricuspid valve occurs, there the blood will not flow from the right atria to the right ventricle, and the right atria will be hypertrophied or enlarged. On the other hand, if there is mitral stenosis, there will be enlargement of the left atria, as the blood will not flow from the right atria to the left ventricle. Similarly, if there is loosening or there is regurgitation, that is the cusps are loosened up due to some abnormality, so there will be regurgitation or backflow of blood. If it occurs here, there is tricuspid regurgitation. If it occurs here, it is mitral regurgitation. If in the pulmonary valve, there is pulmonary regurgitation, and if in the aortic valve, the aortic regurgitation.